Good evening. This is Muriel Gerhardt again, and I'm sharing stories from my life. And this one is the second part of the one we previously recorded, and it was called A Fine Romance, but not tonight. This one will be given in two parts. It's called A Fine Romance on a Slow Boat to China. Some of you may remember that song. So, on go the glasses, and here we go again. On a Slow Boat to China was a favorite song in the late 40s. It began with the rendition, I'm going to get you on a slow boat to China. I can't sing it all by myself, alone. It was what I called a moon swoon song. It was catchy and it caught me. However, I'm getting ahead of myself. The snowstorm was over. The streets were cleared. There were no black or white holes for me to fall into. But I had fallen, but into more than snow. The question was, had he? I was back in the lab and was attempting to re-experience what had happened the night before. Was all this a figment of my imagination? Was I a foolish romantic? Was I working too hard and losing my sense of reality? Was I going off the deep end? I sure went off the deep end last night. Had the soaked slacks and the drenched boots to prove it. It was amazing that I didn't have pneumonia. Now I sound like Mama. What did you do? She asked when I got home last night. Ma, I replied, I just walked into it, and it was a real chilling experience. Mama laughed. Well, if that was all that happened, you can handle it. Yes, I told myself. If that was only what had happened, I definitely could, but the lab door swung open. I looked up from my lab table. Norman had just entered the room. Hi, how are you? He asked nonchalantly. I'm afraid I'm going to live, I replied, laughing, and I will probably live to regret it, I added. Not funny, I told myself. Not funny, Norman retorted. I definitely agree. We have the momentum lab to complete, Norman reminded me. Fine, let's get with it and no funny jokes. He began to set up the lab equipment and I collated the lab sheets. We heard rapid footsteps. The door opened. It was Scott. Sorry, had a conference with a parent and missed my usual train. How are you guys? Well, replied Norman, the last time I looked, I was fine. I haven't had time to investigate the situation, I replied. But when I do, you will be the first to know. Okay, Scott replied, laughing. Messages received. We have the momentum lab to work on. The report is due tomorrow. I'll do the data sheets. If you give me the completed data sheets, I'll do the stats, I volunteered. If you guys give me your sections, I'll write up the summary tonight. It was as if nothing had happened the night before. We divided our tasks, did our parts, and the world continued to spin on its axis as it revolved around the sun. Should I have expected otherwise? Fool that I was. Let's go, I told myself. It was just one of those things. Oh, stop. I heard my inner voice complain. Keep the songs out of it. No, I continued, deaf to my inner voice. Maybe it was one of those crazy things. That song again. Crazy, maybe. I was engaged to marry a wonderful guy. He had walked into my life and was exactly the kind of man I wanted as a husband. And I was exactly the kind of man he wanted as a wife. There had been no doubts in either of our minds. I recall the first time I saw him. I was walking up the stone steps of the famous 42nd Street Library. It was a blind date. He was searching for a gal in a deep purple coat and a purple velvet hat with black hair worn in a chignon. I was searching for a very tall, 6'2", blonde, blue-eyed guy in a beige raincoat and a beige hat. My purple coat was brand new. Although I had modeled it, it still cost me a small fortune, all of $120. That was a lot of money those days. As I moved up the stone stairs of the 42nd Street Library, since the coat was long, I lifted the bottom. This was no time to trip, and I almost did when I looked up and saw the beige raincoat, beige rain hat, and a very handsome man smiling down at me. I was shocked. Blind dates are not supposed to look like that. Do not faint or fall, my inner voice advised. Just smile. You have great dimpled cheeks when you smile. I took a firm grip of myself, steadied my legs, took a deep breath, and smiled. You must be Muriel, he said. My heart was racing, and my inner voice said, you have just met the man you are going to marry. What I was to discover later in the week was that the handsome guy in the beige raincoat had arrived at a similar conclusion. She had just walked into his life, and she was it, he confided to his parents. My parents would have said it was bashert, or destined to be that way. According to my parents, this was a marriage arranged in heaven. And now I kept wondering if God had changed his mind. Not funny, I told myself. The lab door swung open. One of our classmates, Rita, came in. Rita and I were old friends, and we had been undergraduates at Brooklyn College. Rita started in her usual fashion. You are just the people I've been looking for. You're all invited to my house for a Christmas party, Saturday night. You can bring a guest or come alone. Rita finished with, do I hear a yes? The responses from the three of us were unanimous. We would be there. And to tell you what happened at Rita's party, I will describe it for you in the next vignette. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.